Hello and welcome back to another episode of Awaken, Heal and Transform with your host, me, Francesca Raffa. Today, I am so pleased to be welcoming the beautiful Francesca. Her name is Francesca Seclinovo, and she is such a beautiful, gentle, vulnerable soul. And I've connected with her via Instagram and have attended a couple of her online workshops, including one of her yin and sound sessions, which was absolutely incredible. So her aim is to inspire us to slow down so that we can reconnect with our inner wisdom in the silence. She specializes in yin yoga, yoga nidra, sound healing with the full moon Himalayan singing bowls. And she also hosts together gatherings, as she calls them, together gatherings, which are a combination of cacao, sound, dance, and song. And I am so excited and just honored, really, to be able to have her up here today on the podcast to share her journey into what has led her to her awakening and why stillness is so important for her in her life, which is why she teaches the importance of slowing down and stillness within our daily lives. So let's welcome the incredible Francesca. Hi, Francesca. Thank you so much for joining the Awaken, Heal and Transform podcast today. I am absolutely honored to have you here, and I cannot wait to dive into this transparent conversation about you, your life, and just everything that you are about. I just think you are such a captivating soul. Your energy is so drawing, it's almost like if I look at you, just looking at you through this screen, it's like I am with you and feeling so deeply connected. I mean, not just because we have the same name, but just because genuinely I really connect well with your energy. And I've had the pleasure of attending some of your beautiful online workshops. And like I said, I'm just so excited to get to know you a little bit deeper. And your journey is really inspiring. So I just want to open this up to you to tell us a little bit about your journey and what's kind of awoken you into the embodiment of the you that you are today, providing spaces that encourage us to slow down, to be and sit in stillness.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me here. Gosh, it's like when you think about the beginning, where was the beginning? Was the beginning that you thought was the beginning really the beginning? But I would say that it started 4 years ago. So around 4 years ago, literally, it was 4 years ago on the 18th of April, and my dad passed away. So my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and I believe, like, for me, this was the real catalyst that really pushed me in the direction that I needed to go. For the longest time in my life, I felt very lost and unfulfilled. I was doing so many different jobs that I was like constantly hunting for the job where I would feel fulfilled. And I remember I was just like, I just want to create a sense of community, and I want to be in a sense of service. And in a way, I always have been. I used to work as a spa therapist for like cruise ships and five-star hotels. So there is an element of that. But it wasn't filling me up to the brim, to the point where I was like, this is it. So 4 years ago, when my dad passed away, it really put me into a really big spin. I'm such a daddy's girl, absolutely adore my dad, and then, like, just from like 1 minute to the other, like, I felt like the universe or the world just opened up this massive crater and just swallowed me whole. At the same time, like, bad luck comes in threes, right? So I was made redundant. I was in a really toxic relationship at the same time, which ended, which left me in this space of like, what do I do next? And it was so weird because I remember like several years previous to that, I was speaking how I would love to have gone backpacking. And basically, long story short, I was made redundant and I used that redundancy money to fund my backpacking trip. And from that backpacking trip, I went to Southeast Asia, one-way ticket into Bangkok, and really having no idea what the frig I would be doing, what I would be doing. Like I had no idea like what I would even be, you know, the idea of coming back home, what was I even coming back home to? I had no job, I had no prospects, I had no idea of what I was doing. So really for me to go to Asia was this idea of I just want to get myself to be okay because I really wasn't okay. Um Losing my dad was like the it opened me up in so many ways, and I felt like I died in so many ways as well. Yet at the same time, it most definitely reconnected me to like my belief into spirit, into my spirituality. It deepened my faith into relationship with the big unknown.
Mm.
And my dad was super spiritual, and I've always grown. Well, my dad was religious, but my dad was very spiritual as well. Like, even when I think about when I grow up, and I'd be like, oh, Papa, my dad's Italian. I'd be like, oh, Papa, like I have a headache. And my dad would be like, come here. And he would put his hands on my head. And when I think about it now, I'm like, man knew Reiki. He didn't even know he knew Reiki. A man was doing Reiki.
Yeah.
And and basically I just literally surrendered because I was in a really bad place. There was a lot of like family stuff that I needed to organize, and I was like losing weight. I was having eczema all over my face because I was internalizing this huge amount of trauma that I wasn't vocalizing, and I wasn't even seeking an outlet. So it's like your body can only take so much, right? Until it becomes visible in our body in on so many different levels. I was losing my hair, I was having alopecia, and then I got to a point where I was just like I had a very bad day. Like when my dad did pass away, I felt like I couldn't allow my grief to show in front of my mum, in front of my brother, because like I almost felt like, how dare you? Like, how dare you like try and break down in front of your mum where your mum's just lost her partner of 30 years. And I would be crying on like the tube, outside, going for a walk. I'll be like, screw this, I'll just be crying anywhere, everywhere across London town. And it was amazing because it really allowed me to be able to connect with strangers. Like, people are amazing. Sometimes like I have these moments where I'm like, God's sake, humanity, I feel so disappointed. But like this moment, like when my dad passed away and the amount of support that I received from total strangers,
Mm.
he like uplifted my spirit and gave me hope. People didn't just turn a blind eye to this really mashed up looking girl, like makeup streaming down her face. People stopped. People gave me sweets. People gave me tissues. People sat next to me and were like, I know I don't know you, but I would be willing to talk to you. Like that was just like,
Wow.
and going to Asia really, it's funny because everything I do now, I had a very superficial relationship with, like yoga and meditation. I never heard of sound healing before, never heard of cacao before. And literally, my trip in Asia is what opened up. I was just like, you just tell me, where do I need to be? Where do I need to go? And I used to be a control freak. Like, I used to work in five-star hotels, I used to work in operations, and, like everything
Mhm.
structured, and I lived my life that way as well. And I realized that if I wasn't like if I didn't I believed if I didn't plan something or book something and it wasn't in the diary, that nothing would happen in life. But the narrative that I was telling myself is that I'm actually not creating space for the universe to create any form of magic for me.
Mm.
Going to Asia, it was like, my diary is empty, like fill it, like just do whatever it is that you need to do for me to open my eyes to see that I was living my eyes with blinkers. I was living my life with blinkers on, you know? And when I think about it, it was the most, like, even now, when I think about it now, it's like the most amazing experience in my life. It was traveling on my own in Asia was the best thing that I have ever done for myself. Um, and like when I just think about it, all the synchronicities, like endless synchronicities, endless like spooky like stories like of me like connecting with my dad. And I really needed that. And everything led me to, I did, Christmas was coming up. I didn't want to be alone. So I did a very short week meditation yoga retreat, not to do any, but just like for me, just not to like the intention of like, oh, I want to teach yoga. No, just for me. And that week was just, I did that in Cambodia, and that was just phenomenal. And then that led me to the idea of, oh, I'd love to do like yoga training, not to teach, but just to deepen my practice. So that, and then that led into me doing like my 10-day Vipassana, which is like a silent meditation retreat. I did that in Indonesia. And then being in Indonesia led me to a guy that did sound healing. And then, it was just like so effortless. And and then, to the point where I came home and I was just like, sound healing was the one thing that I didn't even experience because the guy I contacted wasn't even in Indonesia anymore. So we just had an open conversation about sound healing. And it was just like one of those, it was a point of remembering. It,
Mm.
every single cell in my body remembered this. And it was like, this is what you need to do.
Yes.
It's like, okay. And I was like, what is this? Like, what do you even look for? Like, I was like on the internet, London, sound, music, train, it's like, what do you even look for? Because, like even 4 years ago, sound healing wasn't even really a thing. When I was looking for people doing sound healing with Himalayan bowls that I used, you,
Mm.
there was not really many people around. People were doing crystal bowls,
Mm.
and then I found my teacher, and it was one of those things. There was like 2 spaces left, and the training started like 2 days after I was due to fly back. And so I was just like, wow, okay, I'm really being guided and led here. And the things that I began to realize is that the universe shows us so many signs on a daily basis, on a daily. It's just that we don't see it.
Mm.
It's like when you, for me, it was like when I decided to open my eyes to this being in relationship with the universe and being in relationship into the unknown and deepen my connection to my spirituality, it was like when I deepened that realization and consciously decided to open my eyes, I saw the signs everywhere. And it's like a connection, like it's like a muscle, The more you connect to that muscle, the more you deepen that relationship with that muscle, it gets stronger.
Mm.
Like the more you begin to not see it or pay attention, that connection weakens. And so, yeah, I got back and I remember being like, really, Francesca? Are we going to be hitting bowls now? Is this what we're going to be doing? And
Mm-hmm.
was I never imagined it to kick off in the way that it did, because even my friend, I remember like a really good friend of mine, they were like, oh, Fran's just been backpacking, she's gone all hippie.
Mm.
It's a phase, and I was like, I don't think so. I don't think so. Not on this one, I'm afraid. And yeah,
Feeling more at home than ever.
yeah,
Mm.
exactly. And it's just opened up more doors. And it's just, you know, something as simple, it's such a simple concept. Lie down. Close
Right.
your eyes. Who can't do that?
Mm-hmm.
This is the beauty of sound healing, is that it's even like when I just think about it, like I get tingles all over my body, because it's something that is so simple. It is so relatable. Anyone can do it. And sound healing again is one of those things. It's like the more you do it, the deeper your connection becomes to like the most deepest parts of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. It's amazing. And sometimes all you need is deep rest. Who doesn't need deep rest?
Yep, we really just don't get that enough in today's society. But there is so many things that I want to ask you upon everything that you've just said, and a lot of things that I was going to ask you, which you already touched on, which is quite amazing. But the whole time you're speaking, I just have all of these shivers in my body, just the resonance of truth and the resonance of pure vulnerability that is just coming so effortlessly from your heart. And one of the main things I was going to ask you before you said that you had this connection with your dad was whether you speak to him on a daily basis.
Mm. Yeah, well, I don't speak to him on a daily. Um, I do, I do connect to my dad, and I do speak to my dad, and that really happened. Like when my dad was passing away, and he was, my dad was on. He ended up ending his days in a hospice, and he chose and he decided that. And I remember my dad would always say to me, like, "I will never leave you. Like, I will never leave you." And I remember having a conversation with him. I was just being like, "Pups, like, if you can reach out to me, like, I want you to reach out to me." And he always promised that if he could, he would. And I know, like, there's this, like, it's even weird. It's like me and my dad in numerology, we have like really weird numbers where so for example, like I'm 27th of September 1984. So my numbers, like the singular numbers, they're like 994. My
Mhm.
dad's numbers are 449.
Mm.
We we like complete each other.
Wow.
He when he passed away, like the night that my dad passed away, I remember I woke up at 2:30 in the morning, and I just felt something was wrong. I was like,
Mhm.
something's not right, something's wrong, and I didn't know what it was, and I couldn't do anything. And so I went back to bed. 15 minutes later, the hospice called me to say that my dad passed away. And when I said, "When did he pass away?" they said, "In the last 15 minutes." And I knew that was my dad coming to me to say goodbye, because I knew that he would not leave this world without letting me know.
Mhm.
And I remember, like, even when I was traveling around Asia, I really wanted to like connect with my dad, because I got really annoyed with my dad. Was like, I'll never leave you, and I'll come see you. And he never did. He never did. I was so angry. I was like, "You missed me. Where are you?" Like,
Mm.
sometimes when you're looking too hard, sometimes
Right.
you miss it, you know? It's like you're looking for something deeper, but it's actually right there. And when I went to Asia as well, my big thing was like, I want to connect to my dad. Like, how do I connect to him? Do I see a psychic? Do I see a tarot reader? Do I see I don't know, you know?
Mm.
Then I decided against it, because then I was also like, I don't want some person to take advantage of a very vulnerable, like, young woman who's desperately trying to seek and connect to her dad. But then, like, I did meet someone, like, and it's like when I think about it, it's like that interaction that I had with this particular woman, like, we're still friends now, really opened the way, like, my eyes to how I can just openly connect to my dad. Like, I was traveling around Myanmar, and this guy who was like so sweet, we're like brother and sisters from Brazil, he was leaving, and he saw two Portuguese women. All of a sudden he starts talking to them about me. He's like, "Oh, I have a friend, she's staying here on her own, this is her room number, you should go knock on her door and hang out with her." And they totally did. They knocked on my door, and they were like, "Hey, like, we saw Andre, like, do you want to come have dinner with us?" And I was like, yeah, totally. Started hanging out, and then it came on like the anniversary, so it was like the 18th of the month.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of, I used my social media like 4 years ago, more about my healing process because I was internalizing everything. A friend suggested that I talk about it.
Yes.
I remember like blogging about it and just using Instagram as a way to, it was more like therapy for me. I didn't care who followed me, I didn't care who read it, who liked it. It was just like, you know what, this is me, this is how I'm feeling. I used my love for photography, and I just took really beautiful pictures of my trip and I put it out there into the ether. And it was just like a small percentage of weight just being lifted.
Yeah.
And this girl was like, we know why you're traveling. They lost a mum as well. She lost her family member, and she was like, I do angel card readings. Do you want a reading? I was like, it was the first time I manifested something. It was like the first time I deeply wanted something, and the universe literally gave it to me. It was like the beginning of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Know? And I was like, oh my God, it's the 18th of the month. I'm like, yes. And she was leaving the same day. So she's pulling out all these cards. She's saying all this stuff, which was just so on point, so specific. I'm like ugly crying, snot running down my face. And she says to me, I'm like, is there anything you want to know? And I'm like, I just want to know, like, what does my dad want me to know? And my dad always said to me, like, have faith and believe in God. But, replace God with spirit, source, universe, whatever it is. She turns over the card and it said, believe and have faith.
Wow.
If I wasn't ugly crying already, I was most definitely like unable to breathe by that point.
Mm.
Yeah.
The
I,
confirmation.
yes.
Mm.
She was like, your dad will never leave you. All you need to do is have a conversation with him. And from that point, I remember going back to my room because I treated myself to a private room, wasn't staying in a dorm. And I remember being like, packing my bag, like, hey, pups, the reading, it was pretty cool. I'm in Myanmar and I'm like packing my clothes. I'm like, this is weird. I've never done this before. And then the creepiest thing happened. The TV switched on.
Mm.
And the TV switched on, and in any other moment, I honestly would have ran out of the room petrified. But in that moment, it was like my dad had just like flown into the room, and it was like a cosmic hug, and that was probably the most like profound like experience that I had in communication with my dad. And that just reminded me, it was like, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You don't need to be tied or connected to a particular item, to a particular destination, to a home. Spirit is there, always connected, everywhere.
Everything.
Everything. And
Mm.
was like, yeah, the most amazing experience. Every now and then, like, I'll talk to my dad, and on
Yeah.
an anniversary, I'll light a candle, and important dates. And, sometimes I'll be like, perhaps let me know you're here. And then, like, something will drop, so I'm like, okay, you're still here. Cool.
Yeah, it's that realization that once you realize that he is actually in every single thing around you, within you, it's almost like you were able to heal,
Yeah.
really, really.
Because,
And the
yes.
whole experience that you had throughout traveling through Southeast Asia was a profound healing experience, following those synchronicities and completely surrendering to life. And within that, would you say is where you first heard the whispers of wisdom?
The whispers of wisdom. And my I both my parents are my mum's very spiritual. They're both very religious. They're both very connected to like God and spirit.
Mm.
I've, in that sense, always been really connected. I was always very connected from a really young child. Like I would see things, hear things, but I was petrified. I was very scared.
Mhm.
My dad, and I adore my dad because my dad always believed me, never said none of this nonsense. Oh, is this imaginary friend? Or my dad would be like, okay, what did you hear? What did it sound like? Da, 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 da. And then my dad would always be like, don't worry, I'll tell them to like not scare you or not be afraid. And it was funny because I had this gift as a child
Mhm.
to see and hear things. And then I think my dad spoke to them and he was like, leave her alone, she's scared. And it stopped. But then
Okay.
losing my dad, I'm like, I want it back. Like
Mm.
back. I want to hear everything. I want to see everything. And yeah, it was so deeply healing because like when we lose the ones that we really love, we, like I said, we say lose,
Uh-huh.
lose, lose. Like they're not here anymore, like they're not in existence. But for me, this was a huge realization that we're not losing them. They're just transforming into a different form
Mhm.
is here. And like when you begin to understand that they're here, it gives you the deepest sense of comfort. It's so healing because it's like you know that you can just continue your life knowing that they're always here and you haven't actually lost anything.
Mm. Yeah. And also, I guess it's super liberating for you to know that and have realized that firsthand, because now your experience of life is actually living in
Mm.
everything that you do. And a big part of that is being present and having that stillness. So tell us about what you do and tell us about this amazing retreat that you have coming up as well.
Oh, amazing. So everything that I do, which is kind of, so for example, I teach practices of yin yoga, teach meditation, sound healing. I do cacao ceremonies. I also do yoga nidra. So even though all of these things all sound very different, they are all the magical thread that connects them all is that they are practices that encourage us to slow down so we can begin to reconnect to this vessel, this body that is home. And I really believe, and I teach all of these things because they've given me such deep, profound healing within my own experience that I know that they work, that I know that there is a huge amount of benefit in these practices that I teach because I've experienced them myself.
Mm.
And for me, society and the world that we live in, it's so externally focused. We're always seeking answers outside of ourselves. We're always seeking something outside of ourselves, when really, oh my goodness, everything, like, this physical body may not be old, but the very essence of who and what we are, that is inside this very young body, is ancient. And within every single living cell of our body is a vibrational code. There's wisdom. There is so much in us that we are like holding on to. And I believe that in our ability to slow down and when we begin to slow down, we begin to kind of put the volume down on the noise. We begin to allow ourselves to connect to that inner wisdom that we hold. And the inner wisdom that we hold, it's not this wisdom that is like screaming and shouting at us. It's very subtle. And for us to be able to engage and access that, we need to, like, physically, we need to slow down our nervous system. We need to relax our body. We need to encourage a sense of peace and calmness in our mind. And it's a full body experience. It's not just, hearing inner wisdom or seeing inner wisdom. It's feeling. Oh my goodness. Like I get shivers all over my body because it's profound. It's like, and it really makes me laugh when I hear people like explain like yin yoga is like yeah, we're gonna just come here and stretch some muscles, folks. And I'm like, you're barely touching the surface, fam. Like, it's so much deeper, because we a lot of us have become so disconnected from our bodies. We've become so disconnected from our emotions because it can seem so overwhelming. But the reality is, it's like we need to learn how to become in relationship once again with ourselves, because everything that we feel and think and experience is a part of what makes us human. It's there for a reason. It's there to be acknowledged because there's wisdom there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the mind, body, soul connection all in one, and through these sacred practices that you holding that space for people to experience the feeling. And like you said, with the wisdom and through spirit, I want to say spirit language, but it's but it's not words. It's actually not words. It's in form of imagery, or it's in form of personal memory that you would have to depict. It's in form of a sensation. It's in form of almost an inner knowing, and that inner knowing is the inner wisdom
The
and
inner remembering.
inner remembrance. Yeah. And what I love about when you're talking about the cells and how they hold on to this inner remembrance, the inner knowing, the inner wisdom, and through sound healing, it's like the activation. Is that correct? Um,
Yes, because
mm,
we are energy. It's like in physics, if people are like, go to the science. Fine, let's go to the science. Science is that we are energy. We are dense, the smallest molecules vibrating at our own unique frequency. So if you can't believe that, you know, music, we all know is, and the thing is, it's like, I find like it's all it is, because sometimes I feel like when you use terms as spirit, when you use terms as spirituality, it sounds too juju for some people. So really all it is finding the right terminology and the right language that you resonate with. So it's like, okay, music, everyone loves music.
yeah.
Cried to a particular piece of music? Who hasn't received like joy from music, anger from music? Because
Mm,
it's like energy. Music has its own unique frequency depending on the intention of that piece. It has the ability to affect us mentally, emotionally, physically. And this is, for me, that is what made the connection for me to connect to sound healing, because I was like, of course it makes sense, because I know that when I'm sad or depressed, I will intentionally put on a sad piece of music on repeat,
mhm,
me in that sad space. So the beauty of sound healing is, it's because it isn't a particular piece of intention where it's like, this is like more a dramatic piece or a more sad or happy piece. They're just specific notes. And it's fascinating how just specific notes can trigger a memory in someone, or trigger an emotion, or trigger a feeling, and not knowing why.
mm,
It's so beautiful that something that is, it's such an ancient practice, it's something that is so simple. And I've seen the benefits of sound healing touch so many people. It
mm,
allows you to like come back home to yourself when you've dialed down that noise, dying down that like internal chatter. You get to experience peace,
mm.
and it's like, who doesn't need a bit more peace in their life?
And what you said before is, with sound healing, what's so great about it is you just have to lay there and listen.
The easiest thing. And I deeply believe that every single human being on the planet, as much as like we like to commit to our physical body and like work out, because movement is good, it's the balance.
Yeah.
um, every single person should commit to a slow nourishing practice once a week,
Mm,
to
mhm,
get that balance, to get that yang active movement. But then you need to incorporate the yin aspect consciously, not just sitting at home and getting your mobile and scrolling. That doesn't count. you know, something like yin, something like meditation, something like sound healing, because the effect of it ripples. Like, you feel the benefit of sound healing, even if you did it once a week. That ripple like goes across your entire week until you do it again. And me, this is why I wanted to then do a retreat, because I invested a lot of like time and money in my own healing in retreat. Retreat is special.
Mm.
Retreats are magical. And I know that from my own experience, like from the many kind of retreats that I did for my healing. And there's just something so beautiful coming together for a couple of days, committing to the practices that are held on those days, coming together, being open, sharing. Because sometimes, you know, all you need is that space to be seen, to be heard, and for you to just simply be in the space of where you are. And so, yeah, this is what made me create my retreat, which I will be holding on the 9th to the 11th of August. So it's a 3-day retreat. It's in this most amazing venue in Norfolk. It has like 22 acres of land. It's got a lake for like wild swimming. It's got a pool, but we're in a converted barn. You're surrounded by nature, and we're all really together. And yes, I'll be sharing like all of the practices that I do, from cacao ceremonies to sound healing, yin yoga, morning meditation. And, you know, there'll be, you know, some like rituals and things like that, because, you know, I didn't plan it, but it falls onto a new moon as well. So I'm just like, you can't make that shit up. You know, when the universe is like, your retreat is going to be here, and then you check it's a new moon, you're like, okay, so we need to be doing some, you know, intention setting. And okay, so
Using the
yeah.
energy in the right ways. Wow, it honestly sounds incredible, Francesca, and I'm so excited for you and your journey. I knew this was going to happen, but your journey has just been so deeply inspiring and touching, and I know it's going to resonate with so many of us because it gives us hope. There is hope, and there is still life beyond the pain. And your story is just the total revelation of that. And I love that. And I really appreciate you sharing so openly, vulnerably, and deeply, really, in such a way that can resonate with others in such a simple format. And really, what I love about this whole conversation is everything you have talked about is so simple, and we don't have to overcomplicate things. And I find, you know, everyone is always overcomplicating life, and life doesn't have to be that complicated if we really strip it back to basics of what it actually consists of and what it actually means to live in a space of peace, joy, happiness. And where all of that comes from is within. It's never without. So your practices are something that I, like I said, have attended and know from my heart are going to be so beneficial and are beneficial to so many people. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing what you do and being here today, and sending so much love to you. And I've loved this conversation. Where can people find you, by the way? Just let us know how we can connect with you.
So you can predominantly connect with me on the good old gram. So you might want to write it down. It's going to be Francesca underscore my last name, which is Sekulanova underscore wellness. And also on my website, but that's all in a link on my bio on my Instagram page, which, yeah.
I will be tagging. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so
Francesca.
much.
Mwah.
Thank you so much, my love.